So, don't you think that in current scenario or in China is actually trying to dominate the whole world?
Yes, we have been, the attempts have been very strong to dominate us. And
So, can you just tell me, is Lithuania is scared or is feeling a threat from Russia?
of course, you have an active war.
Do you think that Mr. Modi is the global leader and he can do a drastic job in the Russia-Ukraine war?
Well, I definitely hope. We have expectations, we have very high expectations.
So we have seen you speaking Hindi.
और मुझे थोड़ी बहुत हिंदी आती है.
और कौन सा भारतीय खाना आपको बहुत पसंद है?
बैंगन का भरता ये सबसे पसंदीदा खाना है.
और स्ट्रीट फूड पसंद है? दिल्ली में बहुत स्ट्रीट फूड मिलता है.
हाँ, गोलगप्पा.
नमस्कार, भारत तक देख रहे हैं आप और मेरे साथ इस वक्त लिथुआनिया की राजदूत हमारे साथ हैं. मैम, बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आपका. और मौजूदा वक्त में जो दुनिया में बहुत कुछ हो रहा है तो आज बहुत सारे मुद्दों पर बातचीत होगी इनसे. तो मैम, वेलकम टू भारत तक और आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है.
आपका भी स्वागत है लिथुआनियन राजदूत में, दूतावास में.
मेरा पहला सवाल आपसे है, व्हाट इज कैन यू प्लीज प्रोवाइड एन ओवरव्यू ऑफ करंट बायलैटरल रिलेशन बिटवीन लिथुआनिया एंड इंडिया?
Yes, with pleasure. Our relations have really reached a certain new stage last year with the opening of the resident embassy of India in Lithuania. I think, and we all rejoice at this, step, which is a very important step in which we are finally entering the very reciprocal, level of developing our relations with my colleague, the first ambassador of India, active and meeting and engaging in Lithuania, just as I do here. And I think it's going to be extremely important to foster those contacts on local level, on authorities level, on business level also, because so far, without the presence of a resident mission in Lithuania, well, India was known and popular, but it was largely known as a spiritual country of yoga, country of Ayurveda, and generally people have admired India, and I have to say Indian culture has influenced also our identity, the formation of our identity through linguistic links that we share, because the language, my mother tongue, Lithuanian language, is considered to be the closest living sister language to Sanskrit. So we share those linguistic commonalities and probably have some historical affinities related to that, but it's now through the joint efforts of the two residence missions, there and here, that we can actually take it up, in economic relations, in political relations, to really realize the true potential.
What are the key areas in which both the countries are actually working together, cooperating together? Because we are seeing a great cooperation between these both countries.
So I think the crucial area where we have to really make a breakthrough is economic relations, and we are moving in that direction. While the trade, I have to say, between the two countries is not that large, it's about 300 million euros, but it's these days, is much more than trade, and I think that the key area will be technologies. We are a high-tech country. India is a high-tech country, and it's in this area or these areas, because high-tech is a lot of various things.
Can you just explain this term high-tech? How?
So first of all, we've been really good at certain areas. We're small, so we can't be good in literally everything. And India, I think, can be good in almost everything. But our potential has always been exceptional, and not just potential, but the real achievements in lasers since decades ago. And now we are a laser country. We have, 10% of world's scientific lasers come from a tiny country, Lithuania. If you go to a specific lasers like short pulse lasers, 90% of the world's output in that short pulse is from my country. So that's one very strong thing which we have. Another one is fintech. When the UK left, European Union, we became number one in fintech as per the concentration and the activities of fintech companies and so on. And that is very closely related to, the digital solutions, for e-government solutions. Cyber security, we are number 6 in the world as per cyber security indexes. So, the companies in cyber work all over the world. For example, a Lithuanian company designed the Bhutanese National Cyber Response Center, and the same in Dhaka, we have designed a national cyber response team in Bangladesh and in many countries, in fact. So, you can continue. There are various niche areas where very good. And when I look at India, well, I was posted here as the Deputy Chief of Mission 10 years ago, and I actually even lived in the same area. So I come back after a gap of roughly 9 years, almost a decade. And I could not, the place might look the same from the first, sort of outset, but that incredible level of digitalization is what makes it a very different place also. Because I go to the same market and I don't use cash. Instead, I use at least 3 ways of potentially, I have to make up my mind. Will I pay by ATM or UPI from my bank or, my card, which card, so on. So it is incredible. It shows the level of how deeply and widely digitalization penetrated for a common man. And that makes you an outstanding example, pilot country in the world for sure. And that also brings some challenges for a huge economy like India, where imagining that digital level has reached every man, literally 1.4 billion. So we level the need for the cyber security solution so that every man on the street is secure and his purse, wallet is not hijacked and his finances are not ruined, Or just a small example makes it also very, it opens gates for, our know-how coming and solving it. Another example, Aadhaar. When I was here 10 years ago, Aadhaar was just sort of coming into being. Now, my company, a Lithuanian company, is part of a team that is developing Aadhaar too, because we are super good in biometric identification. And the Lithuanian company has been outsourced, so to say, by Tata Consultancy to do a specific deduplication function so that you guys do not, your identities do not duplicate in the future Aadhaar. So this is and there are so many other areas where we can, come in, because for technologies, what matters is no longer the transportation costs that matter. It's no longer, various traditional obstacles like sanitary, veterinary, or whatever, that many countries have different requirements, and there are harvests and so on. For technology, what matters is, if you have a right solution and if you have a right market. So we might be very small, but when solutions are good, the huge market like India will very much profit from multiplying and scaling them up. Yeah. So another example is we have a company here that actually, I was told, they supply 30%, that is 1/3 of telematics hardware. So for the Internet of Things solutions, routers, and so on, you have to have, hardware in which the software is installed, and software might be anyone's. It might be Indian, local, it might be some other international, but for a little hardware that houses the software, they already have 30% of India's huge market. So, see, it's a lot of good beginnings, but it's also true vice versa. You go to a banking sector in the Nordics, for example, because Lithuania, but then we are part of the Nordic-Baltic region, where many of the banks are global banks. They set up their, support and research centers in Lithuania, and mostly Indian, specialists, Indian IT, Indian developers work there. So, we also get your solutions, which are applied in our region. So, it's the beauty is that, in technology, the barriers are very little, and that, the demand and supply really reinforce each other. And of course, then there are global challenges like, cyber threats that we all face. like many other, privacy, artificial intelligence, regulation issues, which bind us, because coming from economics to other areas, I think the general political cooperation and understanding each other in the areas like normative areas of the world is also very, very important, because India and Lithuania is like-minded countries in so many ways, that we follow peace-loving, we follow the rules-based arrangements, be it political or economic, and we need to be actively making sure that the rules work, on setting the new rules also, which would be everybody's, like artificial intelligence, for example. Now the process has just started.
You mentioned about you when you came 10 years after 10 years in India, you see a lot of change. So now you see UPI, the India is now transformed, a digital giant. So which kind of app you use basically in your daily life for making payments when you go outside?
Several. Well, I often use my net banking, UPI from my directly
so
from the
don't
banking.
you think that it is more easy, more safe, more convenient for any person who is actually having cash?
It is very convenient. It's faster. It's I think to me, of course, the digital payments is a whole new stage where you don't really want to come back to cash. I mean, the cash you mostly keep for as a collectible in your collection. Sometimes you need small cash in some areas, but in India I have traveled a lot also in this current stint, and Paytm or UPI, Bhim UPI that I use is acceptable in the smallest shop in the most remote areas, and I think that makes it. I mean, to me, it's obvious that it has reached everybody, literally, in every corner of this vast country.
India is actually promoting UPI across the globe. Many countries have signed MOU. Is Lithuania looking forward for UPI or working together?
But we have that. We have that already. So to me, I definitely admire the progress there. But to me, it's nothing really new. We have been using this. We have also been having our doubts on certain massive expansion, because we are in a rather volatile situation. We have been under a lot of cyber attention from Russia in the last 20 years almost. So to us, for example, we have opted not to have electronic vote, internet voting, because of the fear of hostile actors derailing this. But so we have this, and we have very good e-government solutions, which we happily share with a lot of world. So I think where we could potentially, and we have almost started those discussions on actually working together in third countries, where your solutions like UPI and our solutions, which are always very niche, which, as I said, they come in and complement the grand solution like Aadhaar, for example, unique identification systems in very concrete ways, like biometric deed application or could be others. We could work together in really making the world a better place in third countries, somewhere in each other's countries.
Do you think that COVID-19 impacted Lithuania and India trade, economic relation, or it has actually helped to transform both the countries?
Yes, the second version I would, subscribe to. While of course the flights stopped and direct movement of people had stopped during the COVID, but we have exported a good amount of our pharmaceutical agents, which were in fact used in the Indian-made vaccines. So if you look at the trade and the structure especially, you could say it was boosted even. So it was not cut, and luckily, I mean, we have a digital way of organizing the trade, and the supply chains were not really cut, so we were able to transform. But what it also gave as an impetus to both countries, I'm sure, because I keep on hearing this in India, but we are also very actively reviewing it back home, is that COVID really made us look at the vulnerabilities of supply chains, where suddenly everybody overnight literally found themselves dependable on one source, your amazing pharmaceutical sector discovered that they were literally importing everything from China. Europe woke up to the fact that even the simple masks were not available, only from China. That really gave a push to reconsider that, and finally, the containers were all piled up, and we could not. The prices of transportation got up because there was shortage of containers, and containers apparently are again produced in only one country, which can absolutely control, and pressurize. And we, as a country, I was in China. I was ambassador in China at that time. So we were all pressurized. You be good if you want to get your masks and ventilators. So you behave as this country wants to. So to us, it also gave a big impetus to reconsider our economic partnerships in a way that this friendshoring or nearshoring ideas came up, and they are not our inventions. But we quite sympathize with the fact that and my government, when it came into in power in the late 20s. It said that we have to diversify away from this huge dependency to one country, because that will run us into a lot of problems, and that's what we are successfully doing. So despite the pressure and despite the dependencies, I think we have diversified. I see many countries in the world, including India, doing this. It's never easy, and it's never like instant process, but the pandemic has influenced us in
You mentioned about China, and we have seen you speaking on China very aggressively. So, don't you think that in current scenario or in China is actually trying to dominate the whole world?
Well, I don't think I was speaking aggressively, but the fact is that China has been behaving with us quite rashly, quite unrelentingly pressurizing not to do certain things which I think every sovereign country is entitled. As you know, as a country, we had been occupied twice, so we are now in the 33rd year of reappearing on the map, so to say, in 1990. And we dear independence and sovereignty, we hold independence and sovereignty very dear to us, so we very closely follow on what our partners tell us to do, we felt that China has really exceeded in their demands, so that we don't do this, don't vote that way, we don't speak that. They're exceeded the limits of friendliness, and we simply refused to appease them. That's the only thing. Despite that, we faced enormous economic pressure, a boycott, you could say, in trade, so luckily we're not that dependent. But of course the business ties were disrupted and so on. Then they pressurized us in many other ways, in diplomatic ways, in disinformation, in so many other ways. And then you've had representatives of China questioning the sovereignty and the idea of independence of the Baltic states or other so-called former republics of Soviet Union. So we just can't agree to that. We will continue to, because independence is not yet for granted to us. So we will be very straightforward in defending what we think is rightly ours. That's it. But yes, so in our example, coming back to your question, our example shows that yes, we have been, the attempts have been very strong to dominate us, and these are the patterns that have been also followed with many other countries in the world, including in the Asia-Pacific region.
That is my next question. That how do you see China when it comes to direct conflict with India and in Indo-Pacific region also?
As I said, I think what we have seen is the elements of the same pattern. The elements of the same pattern is to elevate attention, to raise the issues which are which nobody wants to escalate, but they trespass on the limits of various countries' sovereignty. So thanks God the countries are standing up to that, because otherwise, we have another bully in our region where borders and everything that constitutes sovereignty have been very rashly violated. We are very firm on both. We are very firm on both, and we see that these trends are also connected, because And it also stems a lot with the dictatorial nature of regimes because the people are not involved in decision making, and it's a vertical of one person plus the
whole
vertical,
hierarchy is actually implementing.
which takes a decision, and then the country just has to follow because it's not done in a consultative manner.
So when it comes to Asia, or when it comes to Indo-Pacific region, we have seen and hearing that China is actually encroaching its neighbor's place, neighbor's land. So in the recent days, we have seen China name some Indian states and Indian places. So how do you react to that? Don't you think that this is not actually the way you should treat your neighbors?
Well, absolutely. I can very well remember because I was in the headquarters in the Asia department then, before me going to China when the Galwan happened, so we were probably one of the first countries to call India and to express our solidarity, because we feel that sort of bullying and that sort of behavior is not acceptable. So we have expressed, the respect of India's interests and sovereignty on a number of instances.
You used a word, actually you are bullied by your neighbor in your borders. We are actually. So we have heard that German troops are now deployed in Lithuania. So can you just tell me, is Lithuania is scared or is feeling a threat from Russia?
Of course, you have an active war with cities and civilians bombed on a daily basis in a neighboring country, which is 500 kilometers away from our borders. But not that only. Geographical affinity is one. We feel the war. We have Ukrainian refugees, big number. For our small 3 million population, we have almost close to 100,000, 80,000 to be precise, of Ukrainian refugees who have come and stayed, and we have accepted them with open arms. But on the eve of this war, Mr. Putin in fact made a speech in which he announced a special military operation, and I'm a little sad to see that the second part of his speech has been by and large overlooked, because first he declared that special military operation invoking various fake reasons, Nazis and whatever, but the second part he said very clearly it's his mission to restore Soviet Union, the glory of Russia with restoring Soviet Union and uniting Slavic lands. So we are not Slavic land, we've never been, but the others in the region who have not even been Soviet Union proper, but we have been dominated by Soviet Union, are Slavic, and I think we've all shuddered, and it was a very clear moment to them that this was a declaration of restoration of Russian Empire. So what we are basically seeing them is the attempt. Luckily, it's a failed attempt. I don't see Russia. Various pessimistic assessments are now very popular to spread, but I urge you to look at the end game, what Russians wanted. The Russians wanted Ukraine, and they're not getting it. Ukrainians basically want to remain on the map, and they are remaining on the map. So I see that Ukraine had won in many ways already, because it has reasserted that they are a nation, they are a separate country, which Russia in fact argues and tries to dispute even as we speak. At some point last year they have said they have de-recognized Moldova. What is this? Who gives this guy a right to recognize and de-recognize the countries at his whims? So it is very serious. And if you ask me, are we afraid? We are, because my son has cried in bed asking when are Russians bombing us. The first 2 or 3 months were very scary, and luckily now we are we are in NATO, and now we only see that it's our choices and our it was not an easy thing to get into NATO basically, but our attempts and our efforts have been validated, because very frankly I tell you, I sit here just because we are in NATO. I would have been dead by now. I would have been in a labor camp in Siberia, had we not been in NATO. It's as serious as that. So to me, I don't feel very apologetic about this. And coming back to your question on NATO troops, despite the fact that we have been in NATO for 20 years now, we are exactly celebrating 20 years of membership, in NATO, we had not had permanent NATO troops. So this war, in fact, was what made us shout very loud, say, hello, I mean, this is an aggressor country in the neighborhood which has designs on us. So despite, I mean, NATO really tried not to sort of be provocative, but, the reality is such. So finally, we are getting the German troops on our soil, which is just legitimate for a member country because we are entitled and we are able to, come to this agreement of collective defense. But that only speaks to us being firm in deterring Russia, because we all know, it's no secret that this was a very foolish decision to invade Ukraine. I mean, it caused a major bloodshed and a lot of unhappiness in the region, but it has caused the prices soar up, and the effects have been felt from Bangladesh to Nigeria, everywhere. It's a very global, collection of effects. But they're not really getting what they want, and that's the only thing. So I think it's very important to deter Russia from do any other silly silly decision. So yes, we all agree by now that it was very foolish of Russia to invade Ukraine because it hadn't produced the desired result. It caused massive bloodshed, suffering, destruction. But it also caused a major impact globally in prices, especially of food and so on. So the effects are felt very globally. So it's extremely important for us to deter Russia from making another foolish step, because they seem to be capable of miscalculating that way. So yeah, German troops, any other, last year we hosted NATO summit, which took a number of decisions, basically very important for our collective security and our own security. So coming back to your question, are we afraid? I don't think we are afraid any longer. We were, as I said, in initial stages, but we are alerted and we continue to be alarmed, and we will continue unless this war is over. So unless Mr. Putin is stopped, because he has this choice, we will be alert and in the mood to deter this country from another very foolish and very painful steps.
An American news outlet mentioned about Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi that he interfered and he played a big role in Russia-Ukraine war actually. So how do you see Prime Minister Narendra Modi's role in this whole scenario?
Well, we have definitely welcomed the stance of India that was, espoused by Prime Minister Modi, who told Mr. Putin very clearly that this is not the era of war. I think it was a much needed step at that time, and it remains a much needed effort. So of course we welcome very much, and with India having grown into a global power, we really look forward to stepping up India's role in peacemaking, because you definitely have very good credit for a country which has never attacked anyone, which has been peaceful, which has this great civilizational value of peace and bringing peace and non-violence into the discourse on peace, and we look forward to further positive role of India. And now that there would be talks in Switzerland, another round of talks based on President Zelensky's peace formula, we definitely look at India with a lot of expectation for the positive role. And we all hear that this is happening, and India is taking part in that very global effort to solidify the criteria for the peace in Ukraine.
Do you think that Mr. Modi is the global leader and he can do a drastic job in the Russia-Ukraine war?
Well, I definitely hope. We have expectations. We have very high expectations, and we'll see in the concrete decision-making process in Switzerland and beyond. I know that Ukrainian foreign minister came here specifically with the idea of discussing the greater involvement of India in in this war, and also I guess India has been stepping up its role also in other areas, in other conflicts of the world, and wars and aggressions of the world. So definitely, I mean, it's one of the biggest countries in the world. It very much deserves to be, among in the room with, with the table where the main players sit.
We have seen and read many news articles regarding Belarus is actually playing a major role. Actually, with Russia, many Russian troops are in Belarus. Russian missiles are deployed in Belarus, and you guys share border with Belarus. So, don't you think that this is actually on your backside? That the threat is on your backside? It can come anytime. And Russia always told that NATO is the only reason why they attacked Ukraine.
Well, I have to dispel that lie, because Ukraine has never asked for membership in NATO till 2014. And as you know, I was, remember 2014 when Russia grabbed Crimea, when they introduced their little green men and then took over the peninsula, never had before Ukraine asked to be part of NATO. Only after it was attacked very blatantly, very unexpectedly to everyone, they have asked for NATO, because then they saw that they are unable to defend themselves in that way. So this is a lie already. On Russia and Belarus, well, I have to say it's of course very sorry situation where you see the territory of our neighbor being used, for NATO, for Russian military expansion, deploying troops and threatening Ukraine from there, because it's of course geographically very favorable to us. But I have to say the authorities of Belarus chose to have this path by denying the will of the people. They have rigged the elections. The legitimate leaders who would have been leaders had to run, and they are in Lithuania at the moment. So we do not consider these authorities as legitimate authorities, and then, they are basically implementing the Kremlin agenda.
Coming back to India and Lithuania relation, what are the priorities of Lithuania in upcoming years for working with India, and what are the key areas on which you are looking forward to work with?
Yes, so coming back to that, I think we have to aim at technological partnership, because that's what we see happening already. So we definitely want to have an expanded dialogue with India on the various areas, high-tech areas in which we both are good and we need each other. Also, the good backdrop for that is European Union, India technological partnership, and the various dialogues, including the critical infrastructure, the critical technologies which are in place. We are part of European Union, so we're there in these dialogues, and we always look for opportunities ourselves nationally to profit from those partnerships. But for a country like us, where small technologies can be very nicely scaled up and made to use in a big and very progressive economy like India, is of course a very natural way. Another, it's not even an independent pillar, but I think we don't know each other, and that's where I think both sides have to work in bringing the people closer. So one of our elements that connect us and that warm people's hearts a lot is this linguistic connection that I mentioned, and generally the view of India has been in Lithuania that it's a very friendly, very favorable culture and civilization. So Indian studies have been popular. We have Indian studies at the Vilnius University. We have Indian Research Center. So there are scientists working and studying India, teaching languages, Sanskrit and Hindi. Or another way, I think we have to really foster our students in technological areas to have more together in research and so on. And this is where I come to the second element, where students and studying in Lithuania, it looks like an interesting proposition to a number of Indian students. at least 1,000, perhaps more by now as we speak, because this is also a year where more students applied, have already enrolled. I mean, more or less a permanent number that studies in Lithuanian universities, mostly in technological areas. So that gives us hope that even there establish the links that will be later scaled up and also on government level. Culture and other exchanges, societies.
How actually you are working with India on promoting cultural ties and promoting culture?
So it's routine, cultural events, but it's also some targeted events that we are now discussing. So for example, next year we will mark 400 years of the first known Lithuanian in India. So we are in talks with the government of India to declare it a special year of people's connections. Our history is also such that you have been denied statehood for hundreds of years, you were colonized. Same applies to us. So despite the fact that our diplomatic relations are only over 30 years old, but our people-to-people relations date from centuries and in fact probably more than centuries. It's just that we don't know that. So once you go and look into those personal relations of people who have come and stayed and studied and carried back the knowledge of India, their impact has been really incredible. For example, I'm very fond of I've researched the case of one Lithuanian traveler and scholar who came to India on motorbike in 1931. He came here, he studied for 5 years, he worked in various expeditions, he wrote, and he published massive number of articles about the then India in the 30s, in Lithuanian media. He also published here on Lithuania. So we are just collecting those bits and pieces, and we're getting surprised that our leaders, our national leader was corresponding with many intellectuals in India as early as over 100 of years ago. So we just need to pick up on those and foster those relations. Otherwise, artists, exchange of artists. So I'm really trying to not just hold a cultural event, which it's always nice because you bring someone, but actually facilitate their friendships so that they stay together, they work together, the institutional contacts are set between various foundations, various artists, labs, because then it's not a one-off thing, but it actually leads to something else. And the artists, you give them the opportunity, they will definitely cook something up, something nice. So I think my counterparts in Lithuania who are very, very new, we have also started doing the same, and we are really looking forward to a very good future.
Okay. So the last question will be your Hindi language skill. So we have seen you speaking Hindi.
मुझे थोड़ी बहुत हिंदी आती है, लेकिन
आपको हमने सुना है बहुत अच्छी हिंदी आती है, और इसी वजह से पिछले साल बहुत चर्चा हुई आपकी कि इतनी अच्छी हिंदी कैसे बोल लेती हैं।
अच्छी नहीं, लेकिन मैं सीखती हूँ। मेरा स्टोरी है कि मैं 3 बार हिंदी सीखी, 3 बार भूल गई, क्योंकि पोस्टिंग दूसरे देश में है और कोई हिंदी नहीं है। तो अभी मैं 14वीं बार सीखती हूँ और मुझे बहुत पसंद है। मुझे हिंदी बहुत सुंदर भाषा है, बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, विश्व का तीसरा भाषा है। तो और मुझे शुद्ध हिंदी बहुत पसंद है। तो मेरे पास एक टीचर है, एक अध्यापिका है, मैं इसके साथ काम करते सीखती हूँ। तो मैंने उसको कहा कि मुझे शुद्ध हिंदी सिखाए, इंग्लिश नहीं चाहिए। इंग्लिश बहुत इजी है, लेकिन शुद्ध हिंदी तो मैं इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं कहती हूँ, मैं महत्वपूर्ण कहना चाहती हूँ। इसलिए थोड़ा अजीब
महत्वपूर्ण साउंड्स गुड, मतलब ज़्यादा अच्छा लगता है सुनने में, महत्वपूर्ण काम।
लेकिन मुझे वो ये मस्ती से खुशी से करती हूँ। और शायद अगली साल में हिंदी में पूरा इंटरव्यू करेंगे। कोशिश करूँगी। ये हिंदी मुझे बहुत मुश्किल नहीं है क्योंकि ये इंडो यूरोपियन लैंग्वेज, इंडो यूरोपियन परिवार में है, लेकिन सारी भाषाओं जैसे कोशिश करना है, प्रयास करना है,
प्रयास
और
से, प्रैक्टिस और
तो कोशिश करूँगी।
नहीं, पिछले साल लोगों को ये ऐसा लगा कि आप इतनी अच्छी हिंदी बोलती हैं, और वो वाकई में मतलब किसी भारतीय के लिए थोड़ा सा वो है कि बाहर का आदमी इतनी अच्छी हिंदी बोल रहा है। और आमतौर पर आप देखती हैं कि बाहर का कोई ट्रैवलर है जो हिंदी बोलता है, काफ़ी पॉपुलर हो जाता है।
ये बहुत उपयोगित है, बहुत दिल्ली रहने हुए तो बहुत उपयोगित है, क्योंकि लोग को बहुत पसंद है कि मुझे थोड़ा आता है तो ठीक है थोड़ा, लेकिन वह लोग अप्रिशिएट करता है।
अच्छा, भारत में आप बहुत लंबे टाइम से हैं, सबसे फेवरेट प्लेस कौन सी है आपकी?
बहुत मुश्किल प्रश्न है।
और
सबसे एक हाँ, ये पॉसिबल नहीं है। एक
जहाँ टाइम मिले तो आप चाहेंगे कि जाना वहाँ जाना है, वहाँ बैठना है मुझे?
मैं 10-15 जगह आपको दे सकती हूँ।
जरा बता दीजिए आप।
उत्तराखंड, तमिलनाडु, वाराणसी जाती हूँ, नॉर्थ ईस्ट, गुजरात 1-2 बार गई, लेकिन बहुत लंबे यात्रा के लिए जाना चाहती हूँ। मुंबई मुझे बहुत पसंद है, थोड़ा कॉस्मोपॉलिटन है लेकिन बहुत पसंद है। मेरा पिछला यात्रा बादामी था। वो टेम्पल्स, वो मंदिर, ये प्राचीन मंदिर है, तो इतना सुंदर है। मैं लोगों को कहती हूँ बादामी जाए, सारे लोगों को, सारे इंडियन दोस्तों को कहती हूँ कि बादामी जाना है, हम्पी, बादामी, बहुत जगह।
और कौन सा भारतीय खाना आपको बहुत पसंद है?
बैंगन का भरता, ये सबसे पसंदीदा खाना है मेरा घर का।
अच्छा।
मेरा घर का।
और बैंगन का भरता के साथ
चावल, हाँ।
नहीं, मतलब बहुत सारे लोगों को लगता है ना कि आप लोग चावल नहीं खाते होंगे।
हम बहुत चावल खाते हैं जनरली, और लिथुआनिया में भी एक नेशनल डिश है जिसमें चावल है। हाँ।
ये लोगों को पसंद आने वाला है कि आप चावल खाती हैं, आपको बैंगन का भरता पसंद है। मतलब अलग अलग प्रांतों में उसको अलग अलग नाम दिया गया है, भारत में भी, लेकिन भरता उसका काफ़ी मशहूर नाम है। और स्ट्रीट फूड पसंद है? दिल्ली में बहुत स्ट्रीट फूड मिलता है।
गोलगप्पा। हाँ, बहुत पसंद है गोलगप्पा स्ट्रीट में। हाँ,
ये तो लिथुआनिया में आपको कभी कभी मिलता नहीं होगा।
नहीं मिलता।
तो यहाँ से कभी ले जाती हैं कि वहाँ लोगों को खिलाना है?
थोड़ा मुश्किल है वो लेना।
हाँ, वो बहुत सॉफ्ट होता है।
हाँ।
दिल्ली अच्छा लगता है आपको?
हाँ, बहुत अच्छा लगता है, ये मेरा शहर है।
चलिए, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका वक्त देने के लिए हमको, और आपसे बातचीत करके बहुत सारी चीज़ों के बारे में हमने जाना। और ये सब कुछ वो बातें हैं, ये कोई प्लान इंटरव्यू नहीं था, हमने बाकायदा इनसे जो है बातचीत की, और जो भी इन्होंने बताया ये उनके इनसाइट्स थे, वो चीन पर हो, रूस पर हो, या फिर ये इनके खुद के दिल्ली या फिर भारत के अनुभव पर हो।